Can intelligence lead us into a trap? Is it possible that the smarter we are, the more prone we become to making dumb decisions? These are not just provocative questions, but the very essence of a thought-provoking book titled The Intelligence Trap: Why Smart People Make Dumb Mistakes, penned by David Robson. This book delves deep into the paradox of how our intelligence can sometimes lead us astray, resulting in irrational decisions. So, buckle up as we embark on a journey into the fascinating world of cognitive biases, dysrationalia, and bias blind spot to understand how they influence our decision-making process. We often believe that intelligent individuals are immune to cognitive biases, but is that really the case? The answer, quite intriguingly, is no. Even the brightest minds are not exempt from the pervasive influence of cognitive biases. Now, let's dive deeper into this captivating world of cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are essentially mental shortcuts or patterns of thinking that can lead us to form beliefs or make decisions that are not based on reason or actual experience. They're like optical illusions of the mind, distorting our perception of reality. Let's take the example of the confirmation bias. This is where we have a tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs, while ignoring or discounting information that contradicts them. An intelligent person, for instance, might firmly believe in a particular political ideology and unconsciously cherry-pick news articles that support this belief, while dismissing any evidence to the contrary. Then there's the bias blind spot, a fascinating cognitive bias where we can easily identify biases in others but struggle to recognize them in ourselves. This can lead even the smartest among us to fall into the trap of thinking we're more objective than we really are. Another bias worth mentioning is the anchoring bias. This is when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, the anchor, when making decisions. For example, a brilliant entrepreneur might anchor on the initial price offered in a negotiation and make subsequent decisions based on that, rather than considering all the relevant factors. As we can see, cognitive biases can significantly distort our decision-making, making us prone to irrational choices. Even the sharpest intellects can be swayed by these biases, underlining the importance of not just being intelligent, but also being aware of how our minds can lead us astray. Awareness, after all, is the first step towards change. Have you heard of the term dysrationalia? It's a fascinating concept that explains why smart people sometimes act foolishly. Let's delve into this idea a bit more. Dysrationalia, a term coined by psychologist Keith Stanovich, describes the disconnect between intelligence and rational thinking. It's the reason why even the brightest minds can fall into the trap of making irrational decisions. You see, intelligence and rationality, while closely related, are not the same. Intelligence is our ability to learn, to understand, to problem solve. It's often measured by IQ tests, and it's something that remains fairly stable throughout our lives. Rationality, on the other hand, is our ability to think clearly, to make good decisions. It's about how we use the intelligence we have. And unlike intelligence, rationality can be developed and improved over time. So what happens when there's a gap between these two? Enter dysrationalia. This gap can lead intelligent individuals to make poor decisions because they rely too much on their intelligence and not enough on rational thinking. They may overestimate their abilities, ignore evidence that contradicts their beliefs, or fail to consider all aspects of a problem. In a world that's increasingly complex, where we're bombarded with information and have to make decisions quickly, dysrationalia can lead us astray. It can cause us to make mistakes in our personal lives, in our careers, even in our understanding of the world around us. And it's not just about making bad decisions. Dysrationalia can also lead to bias blind spots, where intelligent individuals fail to recognize their own biases, even as they are able to spot them in others. This lack of self-awareness can further exacerbate the problem, leading to a cycle of poor decision-making. Dysrationalia reminds us that being intelligent does not necessarily mean being rational. It's a sobering reminder, isn't it? But the good news is, by understanding this concept, by recognizing the gap that can exist between intelligence and rationality, we can start to bridge it. We can strive to be not just smart, but also wise. And in doing so, we can make better decisions, avoid common pitfalls, and navigate our world with greater clarity and confidence. We are often quick to spot biases in others, but what about our own biases? This is where the concept of bias blind spot comes into play. Just as a car's blind spot obscures the view of nearby vehicles, our cognitive blind spot can make it hard to see our own biases. The bias blind spot is the cognitive quirk that allows us to recognize biases in others but blinds us to our own. It is a phenomenon that affects us all, regardless of our intelligence level. Now let's delve deeper into this concept. Imagine you're playing a strategic game. You're quick to point out your opponent's flawed tactics, but you might not notice your own strategic mistakes. This is because our brains are wired to protect our self-esteem. Admitting our own mistakes can be uncomfortable, so our mind often filters out our biases to maintain a positive self-image. But here's the catch. This bias blind spot can lead to irrational decisions and mistakes. For instance, if you're making a business decision, you might overlook your own bias towards optimism and underestimate potential risks. This could lead to costly mistakes and missed opportunities. So, what can we do about it? The first step is awareness. By understanding that we're all susceptible to the bias blind spot, we can start to question our own judgments and decisions. We can actively seek out different perspectives and challenge our own views. We can also educate ourselves about common cognitive biases and their effects on our thinking. But awareness alone is not enough. We also need to cultivate a mindset of intellectual humility. This means recognizing that we don't have all the answers and being open to learning from others. It means embracing uncertainty and being willing to change our minds when presented with new evidence. Recognizing our own biases is a crucial step towards making more rational decisions. By shining a light on our bias blind spot, we can start to make decisions that are not just smart, but also wise. After all, wisdom is not about being right all the time, but about being open to the possibility that we might be wrong. So how can we avoid falling into the intelligence trap and enhance our rational thinking? This is the question we all grapple with, isn't it? David Robson, in his insightful book, The Intelligence Trap: Why Smart People Make Dumb Mistakes, provides us with some key strategies. Firstly, he emphasizes the importance of actively open-minded thinking. This means being willing to consider different viewpoints and ideas, even if they challenge our pre-existing beliefs. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. It's about being humble enough to admit when we're wrong and wise enough to change our minds when presented with compelling evidence. Secondly, Robson introduces us to the concept of cognitive inoculation. Much like a vaccine, cognitive inoculation helps us build resistance against fallacious reasoning and irrational decisions. It involves exposing ourselves to weak forms of a fallacy to recognize it and refute it in the future. For instance, understanding common logical fallacies can help us spot them in our own thinking and in others' arguments. Finally, the book highlights the power of collective intelligence. No matter how smart we are individually, we can't know everything. By pooling our knowledge and skills with others, we can reach more accurate conclusions and make better decisions. It's the principle behind the saying, "Two heads are better than one." But remember, these strategies aren't magic formulas. They require practice and dedication. They involve constantly questioning our assumptions, seeking diverse perspectives, and being open to new information. They mean sometimes admitting, "I don't know," and that's absolutely fine. So, how can we enhance our rational thinking? The answer lies in the balance of these strategies: actively open-minded thinking, cognitive inoculation, and collective intelligence. It's a journey of self-improvement and lifelong learning. It's a commitment to becoming not just more intelligent, but more rational. Remember, it's not just about being smart, it's about being wisely smart. Because in the end, it's not the smartest people who succeed, but those who can think rationally, make wise decisions, and learn from their mistakes. In conclusion, intelligence alone is not a safeguard against making dumb mistakes. Reflecting on the insights we've been exploring, it's clear that a keen mind and high IQ are not enough to navigate the complexities of life without occasionally stumbling into pitfalls of irrationality. David Robson's book, The Intelligence Trap, illuminates this concept with striking clarity, highlighting how even the brightest among us can fall prey to cognitive biases, dysrationalia, and the bias blind spot. These invisible psychological forces can distort our perception and decision-making processes, often leading us astray despite our best intentions. However, there's a silver lining to this seemingly grim reality. Through actively open-minded thinking, cognitive inoculation, and collective intelligence, we can cultivate a stronger sense of rationality to complement our innate intelligence. This balance is key to avoiding the traps that our own minds can set for us. Consider cognitive biases. By recognizing their existence and understanding their impact, we can take steps to mitigate their influence over our decisions. Similarly, awareness of dysrationalia, the disconnect between intelligence and rationality, can help us ensure that our smart brains aren't leading us down irrational paths. And the bias blind spot, that sneaky tendency to see biases in others but not in ourselves, can be overcome by fostering an attitude of humility and self-reflection. This balance between intelligence and rationality is not just about avoiding dumb mistakes. It's about becoming wiser, more thoughtful individuals who can navigate the world with discernment and insight. As the adage goes, it's better to be a wise person than to be a smart person. Now go and outsmart the intelligence trap.